IG's turn to pick.
Welcome to Game 2 of IG versus Orange in the International 3 group stages. This is kind of on the line for IG and Orange. They, I believe, each will play one more series today, and then they'll play one more series tomorrow. Or maybe two more series. I'm gonna have to check on that.
10 seconds.
Either way, we're getting to the second half of the group stages, and things are starting to shape up.
Remaining.
With this, with game 1 win, Orange is now 6-3, leaving IG 5-4, which is tied with Liquid right now. So IG and Liquid are 3rd and 4th equally in the top half of Group B. If IG wins this game, they're a pretty good shoe-in for the top half of Group B, and Orange will probably still be okay. They'll both be 6-4. If Liquid wins their game versus Alliance, however, and IG loses this game, that will put them below Liquid. And if Tongfu wins basically any games tomorrow, then it could bring IG down to the second, the lower half, down to the lower bracket. So these games are really counting for both of these teams. Orange is a little more secure in their position. They'd have to lose a lot of games to get knocked into the second, the lower bracket, but it's definitely a possibility, and they're not about to give any up.
Reserve time.
Game 1 was really good for Orange. It looked like they were getting destroyed by IG early on, but they recovered really nicely. And Ohio's Batrider, which they've got the Batrider for the second time. I'm kind of surprised that IG doesn't ban it.
Orange's turn to ban.
I guess they feel that the Weaver is more of a problem than the Batrider, which says a lot. KYXY was really farmed on Weaver. He did move quite a lot of
10 seconds.
I was going to come up with a metaphor here. Come on. Nope, the moment's lost.
5 seconds.
He did some heavy lifting. There you go. Lots of carrying from Weaver. He got a lot of free farm, and this is the number of times now where we've seen teams give Weaver free farm in a lane. Particularly, I mean, I've seen this against Fnatic a number of times, where they just let the Weaver be alone, and they don't try to challenge his farm at all, which doesn't make sense to me. Like, it's not... He is hard to kill. He's pretty difficult to gank, but he's not even an anti-mage. He's not a morphling. He's not as hard to kill as those heroes, and other teams know to gank them. And Weaver's not even that fast of a farmer either. That's the other thing. It requires a lot of time dedicated to that. So I find it interesting that they're more concerned about the Weaver that they didn't gank, rather than the Batrider that they couldn't do anything about. We'll see if it pays off this game. This time they do, however, have the OD. They have a solution for it that is not just a Rubik telekinesis, because that's really all they had. They also had the Dragon Tail, but that's, I mean, yeah, Ferrari has to be in position, and he has to have his Dragon Form popped. I mean, there's basically no cast point on the Dragon Form, so that's not that big of a deal. But if Ohio's fast on the 4 staffs, which he is, then you're not going to have a chance. But an OD has a much better chance of being able to do that. His positioning as a carry dictate that he's a little more in the thick of things than a support will be. So I think the OD will help them out with the Batrider a lot in this game. Orange also picked up the Lone Druid. They used... Who else did I watch them play against? Was it LGD Int? I want to say it was LGD Int. God only knows. It was a KYXY Lone Druid, and he did quite well. He got a pretty early Maelstrom. Yes, it was LGD Int, because they had total map control. I have a specific image in my mind now. And he did quite well on Lone Druid. Went for a mid-game build with a Maelstrom and provided a lot for his team. I think it was a 1v1 matchup against Timbersaw? I think so. And he ended up doing quite well in that matchup. So it's one thing that we haven't... They banned the Ursa. That's probably got to be the first time I've seen an Ursa banned. That was the other factor in Orange's lineup in Game 1. The Ursa was so good.
10 seconds remaining.
Once they figured out the Fiend's Grip and the Lasso, Mushi was ripping things up with his Ursa play. And part of the reason they banned the Ursa is because they wanted to pick up the Lifestealer, and Ursa's pretty good versus Lifestealer. It's so I love the picks that are coming out in TI3. There's such a variety. We do see a lot of OD, and we still see Lifestealer and Batrider. All the usual suspects keep showing up, but what the components of the sandwich that they make, like they're like the bread, and everything else is like the meat or the lettuce. No, better than the lettuce. The mustard. I like mustard. Hot mustard, spicy mustard, not normal mustard. Fuck that shit. So, there's been a lot of variety, and a banned Ursa is kind of hilarious to see. I also find it kind of interesting that Orange bans the Vengeful Spirit. I haven't seen all of IG's games. It's impossible to. But VS has been seeing a lot more play from a number of different teams. I've mostly seen it from Virtus Pro as well as Fnatic, and they put it to really good use, so it could be trending overall. Having only a quarter of the picture makes it hard to know. One thing that I think went wrong for IG in Game 1 that I don't think they should allow to happen again was Chuan on Chen. He did the best he could, and he actually, given the setbacks he had early on, caught up quite nicely. But his stacks were completely stolen from the jungle. He was stacking jungle creeps, and it was in a place where he probably should have known that it was warded. Right near the bottom or the top rune, that camp was heavily stacked, and Ohio stole that with his Firefly quite quickly. It didn't take him very long, which really slowed down his farm a lot because he invested a lot of time in that, and he also invested his first creep towards the top lane with a Harpy Stormcrafter, which did work out quite well, but it did slow him down quite a bit. And if they can get him more active sooner in the game, then I think they'll get more out of their Chen. I don't think getting a late Chen active presence in a game, you're losing a lot from that pick, because he has basically infinite potential before 20 minutes. So Orange this game going for a fairly different lineup than they had in Game 1. They pick up the Visage this time. That actually, I believe that got banned out in the first round for Game 1. Tons of Visage play happening across the map. But they also pick up the Naga Siren, and that's going to give them some nice setup, and potentially will thwart some of the initiation from IG.
10 seconds remaining.
A good disruption from IG could really set up
5 seconds remaining.
Quite nicely for Orange. And another thing I want to point out, Fnatic showed this off earlier. OD plus Shadow Demon is a shitload of disable. A lot. And I think that's going to be a problem for Orange, especially with the Batrider. I think they really should have banned out the Shadow Demon over the Darkseer. Particularly, the
IG's turn to
Batrider, he's going to have a hard game. A very hard game. Now, the one fortunate thing is that with the Naga Siren, I believe it's possible for Batrider to lasso targets that are slept. Lasso doesn't deal damage, so I believe you can just still do it. And IG rounds it out with a Morphling greedy lineup, but it could definitely work. Could definitely work. Very greedy. Very greedy. So yeah, I believe you can lasso targets that are slept, which that will help defend against the counter, the imprisons and disruptions from IG.
10 seconds remaining.
But it is nonetheless a big problem for him. So I'm kind of liking IG's draft quite a lot right now. So they rounded out with a Morphling, which works pretty nicely. There's a nice little synergy there with the Shadow Demon. He can make illusions of Morphling, which he's a stat-heavy hero. Those illusions will be very, very beastly. So there's that to look forward to in the late game. And it's also, that works for OD as well. He's a high intelligence hero, so Faceless Void. Ooh, I've always wanted to see this combo. Naga Siren plus Faceless Void. Now I don't know if this is gonna work at all. In fact, it seems dangerous to me. There's a lot of ways that it could go wrong. especially with a Lone Druid on your team and a Naga Siren, a lot of your major DPS is going to be locked out with that Chronosphere. Now, Naga can still net, can still Riptide, and this looks to be a support Naga, so won't be dealing a lot of melee damage. So that's not so much a concern for Naga Siren, but it is definitely a concern for Lone Druid. His bear is going to get stuck in the Chronosphere probably more than once this game, and will not be able to deal the damage that he really wants to. Also, I'm going to start experimenting a little bit more with how I do the lineups. It feels more fluid when I do it when I'm going over the matchups between the lanes, so I'm just going to wait to introduce the teams until they're actually in their lanes. So the Faceless Void pickup is very interesting. Definitely a harder carry than Morphling. Not a lot harder. Like, if Morphling gets one item up on Faceless Void, it's definitely possible for Morphling to outcarry. And Morphling's also a natural butterfly seeker. Loves to go to butterfly gardens and pick up his butterfly. God, that was terrible. I'm gonna keep trying though. There's more of that to look forward to. So that's good for dealing with Faceless Void. That evasion helps stop some of the endless bashes that the Faceless Void loves to stack up. I'll be watching Mushi's build very carefully here to see if he goes for a Battle Fury or if he goes for a Mjolnir. Probably Maelstrom long before he gets a Mjolnir. Mjolnir is a little bit short-sighted to get early in the game, but if you get a Maelstrom, it can work pretty nicely. And I think it'll probably be the Battle Fury because he just wants more physical damage. So if he goes to the Maelstrom, he's giving up a fair amount of DPS versus YYF, and he doesn't really want to do that. So up at top lane, it is going to be Ohio on Batrider versus YYF on Lifestealer. Should be a pretty even matchup, potentially favoring YYF depending on play, and YYF plays an amazing Lifestealer, so could potentially be at a disadvantage for Ohio, as it also looks like he's potentially going for a bottle first. Only one branch and 2 sets of regen. Yeah. Over in mid, it's going to be KYXY on Lone Druid versus Ferrari on OD. And seen this before. Lone Druid gets his farm and actually competes in the lane. Not able to stop the farm. I don't think there's a hero yet that has been found that is capable of doing that. But he competes better than almost every other hero in the game. And KY actually plays a very good Lone Druid. The important thing is to keep the bear up, because Ferrari, his high base damage allows him to do a lot of auto attacks onto the bear, and especially once he picks the orb up, which is not generally until level 9, level 10. But once he has that, it's a really dangerous place for the bear to be. The other fortunate thing for Lone Druid middle is his rune control provided through the bear. He's not getting the runes, but he's denying the runes, and that's at least as important. This tri-lane is a concern for Orange. Oh no, there's already a disruption. Aggressive jungle happening from Chuan. Extinct is going to get trapped inside. Perfect block. First blood going towards Chuan. Very excellent block there. Haven't seen that Shadow Demon block in quite a while. But getting his creep just on the other side of where the illusion spawned and securing that kill on Extinct. So a dubious start to Orange's tri-lane, which I already think was kind of weak. Faceless Void is a very poor tri-lane component, and I think it's wise for IG to challenge this because they know that they can. It's risky for Chuan to be a part of an aggressive jungle. I saw 1437 on LGD Int try to do this. Who was it? Was it against Orange? I think it was against Orange, in fact. So it's kind of interesting that happens twice against Orange in one day. I'm pretty concerned, however, for Chuan's farm for the same reason that happened in LGD Int's game. Because Chen ends up being very underfarmed, and in that game 1437 gave up first blood, so there was a lot of poor play circumstances involved there. But it's important that Chuan finds his farm and doesn't waste too much time down the bottom lane. I think as a combo, the Shadow Demon Morphling works out pretty nicely. They should be able to compete in this lane, which that's pretty frustrating for a tri-lane to not be able to beat a dual lane, because that's not really supposed to happen. But that's kind of what happens when you pick a Faceless Void. Like, he just offers so little in tri-lanes. He can blink onto someone and you can get a lot of auto attacks, and if you get the RNGG with the bashes, then He can deal damage, but it's very luck based and it's not reliable by any means, and you need a lot more lockdown from other sources. If they get the net off, then they can potentially find a kill. I can't say net because net is playing Naga Siren, so they have the ensnare. If they get the ensnare, and it can't be on Zhou because he's got waveform. The one unfortunate thing for Zhou is that his base damage is way below Mushi's, and it's gonna be really hard for him to compete in last hits. He's actually left on his own right now. There's a rotation from Faith into the jungle. Guess he's gonna do some stacking. Guess they feel okay leaving Zhou on his own. It's a little bit risky, and Zhou's not gonna get much farm, which makes me concerned for this Morphling pick. Really, they could have YYF down here, and he could be doing exactly what Zhou's doing. But perhaps they feel. I mean, at least Zhou's getting experience. That's Morphling's very level dependent, so there is that. And the other fortunate thing for Zhou is as long as the Sentry Ward is still up, they aren't. Orange is not going to be able to do any pulls, and they'll have a grand old time. So over mid, it's 20 and 10 on Ferrari versus 15 and 5 on KYXY. So KYXY doing a good job competing there. Mushi versus Zhou, it's 18 and 9 on Mushi versus 11 and 4 on Zhou, and I don't expect that to get much better for Zhou. In fact, he's going to take a lot for estimate. Oh man, a single bash there is very scary for Zhou. And Chen ganks middle, as does Faith. I should have noticed that rotation. That's pretty obvious now that I look at it. KYXY goes down to a gank from Chuan as well as Faith. Really strong ganking combo. The disruption gives a lot of time for Chuan to get in place, as does the imprisonment. That's basically, I mean, at this level already, it's a 3-second prison. That's 5.5 seconds for Chen to get his creeps in there, and he picked up a Dark Troll Summoner, which is exactly the best ganking creep you could possibly ask for. So there we go. Sometimes the minimap, I can't click on it. It makes me panic. YYF cancels a TP. A little bit of wasted gold there, and means he's not TP anywhere for a full minute, so don't know about the decision. Ohio up at top. 23 and 0 versus 36 and 6 on YYF. He's rotated out of the top lane at this point and into the jungle. And he's not level 6, so that feels a little bit early to me, but I think he was getting harassed out of the lane. He has no bottle charges remaining, and that's going to leave YYF alone up there, which I think is a big concern for Orange. Faceless Void does do very well versus Lifestealer. More auto attack damage, the natural bash makes him a big threat, especially with the Chronosphere. Can really punish the aggression that Lifestealer likes to capitalize on. But in terms of the mid game, it's much easier for Lifestealer to get his start than it is for Faceless Void. It's really going to depend on this sleep Chronosphere combo. Top tier 1 goes down to the rotation from Chan. He's got this. The other thing, this Dark Troll Summoner is really the best creep you can possibly ask for. Not only do you get the best disable, but you also get the Skeleton Warriors to summon, and those deal a lot of damage. 24 each, and you get 2 of them. It's amazing. They're still leaving Zhou down here, and start to worry for him. Because every time he trades auto, god damn, another gank middle. So Faith rotates middle, helps Ferrari out, who was dropping quite low. And that's the second death on KYXY. This is really bad news for Orange. I'm starting to feel like they're falling behind here. And in fact, Chuan, he's very aggressively positioned here. Ohio still does not have his Blink Dagger. Which, I mean, 7 minutes in, but he's not anywhere near it, is really what I mean. He's not getting his farm, and KYXY is without... Okay, no, he just resummoned the bear. I was about to say, if he didn't have his bear, oh my god, that's disastrous. But this mid-tier 1 may be falling. YYF is creep skipping here, with the help of Chuan's creeps, and Orange is going to be forced to rotate, and they don't have a lot of ability to challenge this. They have such a greedy lineup with the Faceless Void Lone Druid that they're just not going to be very effective in trying to challenge IG and what they're trying to do. So it would be Mushi versus Joe down at bottom. Mexican, not a Mexican standoff because there's no hostages, so it's just a standoff, a normal standoff. Very concerning for me that KYXY has died twice. Lone Druid is not supposed to die when you send him mid, and it's because of the great rotations from IG, but really Orange needs to be aware of this. And given that Joe has been solo bottom for such a long time, I think the supports needed to rotate out a lot longer. Potentially heading top, or just standing around mid. It's a shame to have very low levels on these supports, but you don't really have a choice in the matter. You can't let Lone Druid be dying. Otherwise, everything is going to go terrible for you. One thing I want to note here is that during Chuan's time down here, puts a lane ward in between the tier 1 and tier 2 mid. Wants to know exactly where Orange is, and we'll have that information. Will be given to him, fed to him on a platter as a result of that ward. YYF, he's picked up an Orb of Venom, he's got his phase boots, working towards his armlet. Well on his way. KYXY also has an Orb of Venom on his bear. Blades of Attack looking towards his phase boots. Orange is definitely, they seem a little on the back foot here. They've got the Chronosphere from Mushi, and I think they'd love to make something happen, but oh, there's a nice D ward here. A very smart D ward. I think, how does Orange know that? They must have been checking Chuan's inventory to know that he had placed a ward at some point during his time. So teleport middle from YYF. Orange is trying to apply some pressure to this mid tier 1, and Net has a double damage on that level 3 hero. Not going to do much. But it doesn't seem like Orange is going to be able to accomplish much with this grouping up. I mean, meanwhile down at bottom, IG are doing some work on the bottom tier 1, and IG really doesn't even need everybody to challenge this push from Orange. So a lot of wasted time from Orange. This is time that Mushi is not farming. He is falling behind, and that's not an option for Orange in this game. It looks like, okay, they're doing a bit of a lane switch up. They're sending KYXY down to bottom, who will be very successful versus Joe. More successful than Faceless Void. Because as Morphling acquires levels, it gets harder and harder for Faceless Void to be relevant with the auto attack harass. Now, the lasso is up on Ohio. Doesn't have a Force Staff or a Blink Dagger. He's 1900 gold, would hate to die right now. But may not have an option. Joe, he has rotated middle. Had a replicate up, and is thinking about joining this engagement from mid. Faith has his Arcanes up, so that's going to help with the mana regen on his team. We've also got 2 points at Essence Aura, not very much, but with the double Tornado from Chuan, there's nothing that Orange can do to challenge the tower, and so it's just going to go down, and they're losing map control quickly, which, when you've got a Faceless Void, that's scary. It's very scary. So I'm watching very carefully to see what Mushi's build is going to be. This determines a lot how Orange is going to be able to handle the mid game. If he goes for a Battle Fury, then they're invested in the late game. They need to make it past 30 minutes, 35 minutes, without losing a set of racks, and without giving up too many kills if they want to be relevant in this late game. IG has started work on Roche. Should take it, no trouble. There's not a lot that Orange can do to challenge it, especially until they have the sleep up. Now, Extinct, well, it looks like they might try. They've got the smoke up on 4 here. Faith is standing on the edge, and you can see, yeah, they're just too late. So Orange shows up too late. He's going to land a 3-hero Chronosphere, but he didn't get Ferrari, so he just gets imprisoned, and so that just does nothing. And Mushi, he's completely out of mana, can't blink anywhere, gets finished off by YYF. Net goes down. This is bad. This is really bad. It's a 4 for none. I don't know why Orange went in there. I'm starting to think that Orange are... They're not out of the game yet. They still have a chance. But it's 7,500 gold. This is the first time I checked the graph, 12 minutes in. 7,500 gold. Not looking. That's not what I'm looking at. 7,500 experience in favor of IG, and Orange is the team with Faceless Void and Lone Druid. Ooh, awkward. It's not going to end well for Orange.
Radiant's
That
bottom tower
Chronosphere
is
was
under
terrible.
attack.
I mean, it landed on 3 heroes, but he didn't get Ferrari, and you gotta get Ferrari. Honestly, it's
Bottom tower
the
has
Chronospheres in this game. I think this is part of why we don't see a lot of Faceless Void. Is if you're really relying on the Chronospheres, then a bad Chronosphere can be it's worse than bad because it forces your team into a big engagement because you don't want to give up your lifestealer for nothing. But really, that's what they should have done. They should have said, "No, Mushi, this is a terrible idea." I don't know maybe it wasn't his idea, but without the sleep, it's impossible to get the Chronosphere that he needs because he has to get both Ferrari and Faith because that's a 4-second imprison. That's way longer than the duration
Radiant's
of
bottom
Chronosphere
tower
at this
has
point.
fallen.
Or actually, it's the exact duration of it. So if Ferrari isn't inside of it, then the entire Chronosphere will be wasted. Disruption, 2.5 seconds. That's just good enough to lock him up.
My holiness.
And it's just not a good idea. Oh no. Up at top, KYXY goes down. This is the 3rd kill I've missed this game. Somehow it feels like it doesn't matter this game though. Like it's just kind of like, oh okay, IG's farming creeps. It's like that's what it feels like I'm missing out on here. Is just Orange falling way behind. Even further behind. Oh man. There's a 4-staff up on Ferrari. He's the one carrying the Aegis, so Armlet finished on YYF, 2,700 gold on top of that, so he'll pick up whatever he wants next. Aquila on Mushi. Interesting choice.
Radiant's top tower is under attack.
Ghost Scepter in the stash for Zhou, so he's headed straight towards that Ethereal Blade build, but you know, I don't think this game is going to last long enough for that to see the light of day. Possible.
Radiant's
But
top
even
tower
unlikely.
has fallen.
IG will take all the outer towers. Orange have yet to take a tower in this game. The Chen for IG is paying off way more than it did in the previous game. Chuan really did a lot of work down at bottom. Made that tri-lane a lot less successful, or actually not successful at all for Orange. And then ganking middle. Not once, but I think twice. Maybe that was just fake, I don't know. It's the net onto YYF, but that's a replicate, which I believe they should know. Wow, they're going to go straight onto the bear. And they almost finished it off. It's pretty close, but they're going to get the tier 2 mid regardless. Now all the outer towers are gone for Orange.
Radiant's middle tower has fallen.
They can try. They can do their best to stay alive. Wow. Mushi almost just goes down to nothing. Oh, there's a lasso onto YYF. Do they have the damage necessary to finish him off? It does not look like. In fact, YYF is thinking about going straight in. Zhou will follow up, but there's a nice Chronosphere for Mushi, but he has no HP because he just ate the Sandy's Eclipse from Ferrari, so he can't do anything with that Chronosphere. That Chronosphere means that IG can keep pushing, and Orange calls the GG at 16 minutes. They know it's over. Even in this tournament where everybody is trying their absolutely hardest and never giving up until there's a sliver of hope, they know that at 16 minutes, it's 0 to 9. There is nothing they can do. Wow. Poor Orange. The Faceless Void pick was not the best idea. IG went with wonky lanes, and they still, they went with an aggressive tri-lane Chen, and they still walked out with the first blood. They went with an off-lane Morphling after that, and he still got his farm. They got 2 ganks off on the Lone Druid mid. Everything went right for IG. And Orange, I just don't think that they played it quite right. Also, YYF, he got tons of farm. I think they realized they needed Ohio's help a lot sooner, so he he left the top lane, leaving YYF alone to do his own farming completely unimpeded, which meant that once YYF did show up, he was dealing more damage than he should, and there was not a single lasso in that game that made anything happen because there were no kills for Orange. A sad game. It shouldn't be that way. Orange can do better. Orange can do a lot better. But great play by IG, particularly Chuan. I think he was the MVP of that match, making that dual lane down to bottom. I mean, it wasn't really a tri lane because he was only there for one kill and then he left. So he made that dual lane down to bottom for as long as it lasted work, and providing kills mid on Lone Druid, he did everything right. And I think the draft from IG was also just way stronger. Disruption and imprisonment, you can't give it up. You just can't. It's too much disable. Alright, next series will be coming up pretty soon.